Hey guys, my name is Carla Grace. I am a full-time wildlife artist and I'm going to give you access to a really great section of my tutorial that teaches how to paint the scaly skin and smooth round talons of a bird's foot. In this sneak peek, I will show you the section that focuses on the smooth, hard talons. I'll guide you through a practical step-by-step format, showing you how to layer the dark and light tones needed to create the semi-transparent nature of the talons. The full tutorial is applicable for both oil and acrylic paint. In the full tutorial, I cover my layering process from start to finish, focusing on simplifying the details of the skin on the foot. I teach the color mixing process and every reason behind the decisions I make as I paint. Now I'll show you the full section from the tutorial, and I will see you at the end. Claws are incredibly fun to paint, especially when they're smooth and as well kept as this particular bird's claws are. So all I'm going to do is add to the base layers that we've already been working on throughout the beak part of the main tutorial, so the first part. And I'm going to focus on adding some warm tones now. Mostly I'll just sort of work across them as a whole. And so using raw sienna, I'm going to bring a warm glow into the top claw. And we're basically just going to layer the colors as we see them. I am going to add them quite over the top at the start. And then as we refine the process, adding more colors, I'll refine those color selections. So I'm working just by sight right now, just adding that reflected warm glow. So this is also going to enhance the reason why there's that warm glow of light underneath the claw, which will be part of our finishing touches to really enhance that glow. Once we've created the overall effect, then we can come in with more details and take it further. So I'm going to use a little bit more titanium white and intensify the light coming through the tip of the claw. And now I'm going to shift over to a more subtle blue tone with a little bit of purple in it. This is going to sort of be a mid-range value, so Payne's grey and alizarin crimson with a little bit of titanium white. If you really wanted to make this purple more vibrant, you can add ultramarine blue to it. So it depends on the reference photo and what you're looking at, but for now I'm just going to stick with my Payne's grey. A little bit more titanium white. It's not standing out against that base. So now I'm going to use a little bit of a mixture with the raw sienna off to the side here and the alizarin crimson. It's like a warm, sort of like kind of a muddy color. It's like a gray warm tone. And that's just an extension almost of the wick within the claw. And it has that blend between the warm tones and that purple. So now I'm going to just dry brush in a glaze of the raw sienna just to bring in a bit more of that warmth, especially over the tip of this one at the top. Intensify the saturation of that light coming through. That's all that I'm going to do with that one. So now I'm going to start glazing in the shadow tone, which is just going to be pure Payne's grey. So focusing on the areas that are the darkest. So for the top one, that is along the edge closest to the beak. Now with acrylic paint, you have to dry brush this into the surface, whereas with oils, you can just simply blend it. I'm going to use a touch of Mars Black in the very dark areas, and that's just going to be the final punch of shadow. The Payne's grey just isn't getting dark enough there. Just going to do that over the other ones as well, and then I'll use my Payne's grey to blend that shadow tone into the rest. So let's move on to the Payne's Grey again, and I will use that as a glaze to blend over the mark that we've created so far. I'm just using my finger to do that final blending with the tones rather than fussing about it too much with my brush, because it can destroy the brush doing so much dry brushing. With this top one, I'm going to use a bit of raw umber for the shadow in the tip. Sorry, as it blends into that sunlit area, that blue isn't going to make sense there. And on the inside of it, actually. I'll bring some light back into that one, but for now I've created that shadow tone that I really like, and I'll come in with a little bit more of a reflective color when that has dried. So in the meantime, I'm going to move on down to the next one with my Payne's Grey, and I'm going to blend over the top of the colors that we've added. I'll bring in some light again now that we've got those darker tones down. Once that's dried, I'll come in with some lighter tones. All right, so now we've got some very extreme light and dark on the claws, and we're going to need to bridge that gap just ever so slightly with some slightly lighter greys and a few bit of kinder colors that I would like to call in between colors just to blend that in. So I'm going to go for this grey that we created with the purple with the Payne's Grey and a little bit of the raw sienna in it, and it's a little bit of an in-between color, a little bit husky, and I'm just going to use that where I see it and just blend it in with my finger. Because claws have such a smooth texture to them, the main effect that we're going to get is going to be the dabs of light right at the end. So right now I'm just creating that in-between tone that we're going to use to blend into those lighter marks. And now I'm going to opt for a more blue version, so that mid-range value that we've got from the start. I'm going to bring that in as well. There is the finest catchment of light all the way around the outside of the claws. And when you start adding the lightest bursts of color, do it with a muted version first before you add the lightest part, and really blend in those edges so that it's got that soft, smooth appearance, and just dry brush it in so it's got that much, much, much softer appearance to it. Now let's add that lightest little burst of light, tiny, tiny little bit of titanium white, and add it to the points where we've got the light touching the claws in the best possible way. You might need to just blend some of those highlight tones into the background if we get a little bit too carried away there. But otherwise I'm really happy with that. Just need a ridge of shadow here. That looks really great. Get another little burst of light on the top edge here. Right, so that bottom claw is pretty much done. I'm just going to enhance the shadow down here. Just going to leave that as it is and it kind of blends in. She says adding more. All right, so let's leave that like that and move on to that middle claw, which doesn't have a lot more to go. There is a lot less reflected light on it when compared to that bottom one. But what we're mainly seeing is some blue reflected on the inside of the claw, which I'm just very gently dry brushing into the surface with a little bit of Payne's grey mixed in there to enhance that shadow. So while that mark is still wet, I'm just bringing in that Payne's grey. And there are some little flecks of texture, so don't forget to add those wherever you see them. The claw is not going to be perfectly smooth. There are going to be some scratches here and there, so just make sure you watch out for where those are and include them because they're going to make a difference into how real your claws end up looking. I'm using my Payne's grey to blend things back together a little bit. And now underneath the claw, I'm going to use raw umber to bring in that shadow tone and just define the tip a little bit better. And there's no real bursts of light in that one. I'm just going to grab a little bit of titanium white and, oh, too much water on my brush, and enhance just a little bit, like go over the top for some of it. Okay, and now I'm going to move on to the last claw. And obviously this yellow underneath is the yellow from the beak. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. And I'm just going to focus on the lightest parts of this claw where the shadow joins the rest of it. Ooh. Let's opt for a softer version here. And a little bit more light. And now I'm going to bring in a little bit more shadow. I'm actually going to do it with raw umber rather than Payne's grey because this is picking up quite a lot of that warm light from underneath. Now I'm going to add a scattering of little spicks and specks of light here just to enhance those final details, and then the claws will be done. All right, so now the claws are done. I am going to be moving on to the final part of this tutorial, which is the light. And the light will filter through and we will end up using a few different other colors, such as ultramarine, and I'll be enhancing those blues like I did in the beak and bringing in all those highlight beautiful warm tones along the right-hand side of the claw. For the full tutorial, please follow the link in the description. Remember to subscribe to see more tips and art from me, and I will see you next time.